Now, the Wall Street Journal has recently published an article, a study by the researchers at the University of California, Berkeley. Now, this study showed that essentially the majority of households that received government assistance aren't just people who aren't working, who are lazy, who refuse to get a job. No, they're headed by working adults. Now, the study found that 56% of all federal and state dollars spent between 2009 and 2011 on different welfare programs, including Medicaid, food stamps, and the Earned Income Tax Credit, flow to working families and individuals that have jobs. In some industries, about half the workforce relies on welfare. Now, that's really interesting. Now, Ken Jacobs, who's the chairman of the University Center for Labor Research and Education, and who co-authored this report, says of this, quote, "When companies pay too little for workers to provide for their families, workers have to rely on public assistance programs to meet their basic needs." Now, that's, of course, something that we have been talking about for a long time on this show and on other shows. Other progressive channels have also been talking about this. Yeah, when companies don't pay their workers, obviously you're going to see an uptick, an upsurge in welfare. Now, believe it or not, us liberals, we're in favor of a safety net, right? But we don't want to have everybody in that safety net. And that's sort of the problem. You remember Mitt Romney talking about the 47%, right? Well, that's part of this, okay? And wages are a huge part of that. These people wouldn't be having to rely on these benefits if corporations would actually pay their workers. I mean, there's no reason that they can't. They're the most profitable corporations have ever been in our history, and they historically enjoy the lowest tax rates that we've ever had. I mean, you'd have to go back to the Gilded Age to find lower tax rates on the wealthy and on corporations. And we're pretty much heading into a new Gilded Age. Now, that's a little bit of a problem. Now, the study continues. More than half of all frontline fast food workers receive some sort of government assistance. Once again, because they don't work full-time, a lot of places don't allow them to work full-time, and they get very little pay. That is a big problem. It leads them to going to, of course, to have to take these welfare programs in order to survive. But fast food workers aren't the only ones. Other fields include home care workers, which 48% of home care workers and 25% of part-time college faculty members. That's interesting. I didn't see that one. They also receive government assistance. Essentially, this report says that taxpayers are subsidizing low-wage employers. Now, that's something that I've also heard a lot from some of my libertarian friends. They ask me, why are we subsidizing Walmart? Why? And that's a really, really good question. We shouldn't be subsidizing Walmart in the form of having their workers be paid such a low wage that they have to get on public assistance programs. Walmart, famously, I've heard, and this is sort of anecdotal evidence, but I have heard instances of workers being instructed on how to apply for food stamps, which then they spend at, you guessed it, Walmart. Bit of a boondoggle, don't you think? When it comes to being a taxpayer, because now you're subsidizing an incredibly wealthy corporation. If that doesn't piss you off about welfare, I don't know what would. Like, you think Jason Greenslade over in California that mismanages his food stamps, if that pisses you off, but Walmart doesn't? When Walmart's an obviously much bigger welfare queen, that doesn't piss you off? But the one guy, surfer guy on food stamps does? I think you got your priorities a little mixed up. Now, this article continues. A report from House Democrats in 2013 found that a single 300-person Walmart supercenter store in Wisconsin cost taxpayers at least $904,542 per year. That is nearly $1 million for one store that employs 300 people, almost $1 million coming from your pocket into Walmart's pocket through the various welfare programs. Isn't that amazing? All because Walmart decides that I save more money on my bottom line if I don't pay my workers. I'm going to let the state pick it up. You want to call it the nanny state? There's your nanny state. It's absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, Walmart, to some credit, they did announce that some of their employees would earn at least $10 an hour by next year. Now, I'm sure they're finding and looking for various legal loopholes to go through to minimize their costs. It's Walmart after all. But nonetheless, I think they get a little bit of credit for that. Now, of course, this goes to, there's one more thing it touches on, and that's the Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC, of course, for working people. Yes, this is a tax credit for people who work. And it's also considered a welfare program. Now, some people call it a welfare program, and some conservatives, even though that this was a conservative idea, didn't like it. Once again, we go back to Mitt Romney talking about the 47%. The EITC is one of those programs that allows people who are poorer, who work, to not have to pay taxes, to actually get a tax credit. And so they're going to complain about that. And I think that's really funny, especially when places like, I don't know, GE and other large corporations tend to get bigger tax rebates and bigger tax refunds. They pay a negative tax. I believe they paid a negative tax this last tax season. Got a refund check. These guys get a refund check, but conservatives, Republicans will bitch that a person on, person who is poor is getting a tax credit under the EITC. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? So here we go. Kind of unpacked a little bit of the welfare myth that people on welfare don't have jobs. They do. And look, some people might take a little bit of an argument, a little bit of an issue of where I get my information. It's true. It's only a liberal rag called the Wall Street Journal. Look it up yourself. The article is pretty sound, and it proves that maybe we need to improve pay for workers, pay them for their work, compensate them fairly, and maybe we won't have to spend so much on welfare.